this guy who was part of this same force that you were part of, the Zero Unit. You didn't know him, but he was part of the same unit, who now shot these two National Guard members, killing one of them. Good news on the surviving National Guard member who we hear today has wiggled his toes and may have wiggled his hand or may have given a thumbs up. So that's encouraging. You wrote an interesting piece about this guy too, suggesting, look, this was not a good one. He was vetted, but we don't throw away all of the Afghani nationals we took after 2021 just because this guy was bad. And right now, I think most people are in the mindset of, yes, we do. Like, we're not taking any chances. They don't share our culture. One false start, they're all out of here. You make a compelling case that, not so fast. Explain.
Well, when I worked in the Zero units, our mission was we went after very high level Taliban and Al Qaeda leadership. I mean, I remember the first day I showed up on the Zero unit, literally the first night working with that unit, I went after a top 10 Al Qaeda target, a very bad guy in the Korangal Valley. And standing next to me on that mission, it was basically there were like 3 Americans and 250 Afghans, and we got that guy that night. And we worked, longtime members of SEAL Team 6, the U.S. Army Rangers. And what happened in D.C. is inexcusable, completely unacceptable. And I understand for most Americans, it's sort of an abstraction. They have no idea what the Zero units are, and suddenly they're in the headlines, and that can be scary. So, but from someone who's spent time in those units, I'll tell you, my war buddies, many of them are Afghans, and we did everything that I did with the Marines you mentioned in that citation. I mean, we fought together, we bled beside one another, and many of those Afghans died, and they died not because they wanted to live in a backward-facing Afghanistan that included practices like Bachabazi and the Chai Boys, which I listened to your previous segment. But they wanted to live in an Afghanistan that's forward-looking and different. And that didn't work. So does that mean we should open the floodgates to every single person in Afghanistan who wants to come here? No, I wouldn't argue that. But I think when you look at a number of these members of the Zero units, and some of whom are already U.S. citizens and in this country, contributing to this country, let's not make the mistake of being completely categorical in our thinking, because that's not what we've done historically as a nation.